I can't wait to read number 12.
It's not.
It only goes to 11.
It only goes to 11. I
It
know.
only goes to 11.
You know what I was thinking?
What?
It's very long, but do you remember I wrote a story called A Prick in Congress?
Yes. I
That.
have to take this. This is tragic, but I do. Hello?
I can't wait to fire you, honestly.
Scene 12, take one.
A couple years ago, I went to Congress to see if anybody there was still up for an honest day's work. Turns out there is. His name is Dave Morales, and he's worked in Congress his whole career, but holds no elected office. He's a third-generation cattle rancher in Congress, Arizona, a tiny little town in the Sonoran Desert. Dave is also a fan of dirty jobs, so when he wrote in to see if I would like to help him transplant a cactus, I said sure. Dave Morales looks like work. He's deeply tanned and big all over, probably 300 pounds. He wears this enormous cowboy hat all the time and a fat mustache that conceals a permanent grin. Unfortunately, there's not much to grin about in Congress these days. Another drought and a lousy economy have forced many ranchers there to rethink their business. Today, Dave pays the bills by selling his cacti, which grow in the mountains behind his house. Yesterday I was a rancher, he told me. Today I'm a landscaper. Go figure. So my crew and I headed over to the Morales Ranch at the crack of dawn. Once we loaded his truck with supplies, Dave and his crew drove a truck toward the hills, and my crew and I followed in a tiny little Hyundai, the last available rental car at the airport. After 20 minutes of random twists and turns, Dave informed us via walkie-talkie that he was looking for a very specific cactus near the top of a very specific hill somewhere off in the not-so-specific distance. Why his sights were set on one particular cactus was unclear since we were driving past hundreds of identical candidates. These things were all around us, towering spires of thorny defiance poking out of the unforgiving terrain like enormous green lawn darts. Eventually, we rounded a corner and came upon a bulldozer parked at the base of a long, sloping ridge. We got out of our vehicles and walked over to the big yellow machine. "Where'd this come from?" I asked. "I parked it here last night," said Dave. "We're gonna need it to build the road." "I'm sorry? Sounded like you said build a road?" Dave grinned under his mustache. "Yeah, I'm sorry too, Mike, but we need to build a road to get up to the cactus." As is often the case with dirty jobs, there's no such thing as a singular task, so I wasn't shocked to learn that the business of transplanting a solitary cactus would require a few additional steps. But I didn't anticipate the construction of a highway in the middle of the desert. "Why not just yank the thing out and carry it down here to the truck?" I asked. This was maybe the funniest thing Dave Morales had ever heard. "What's so funny?" I asked. "You're telling me 4 guys can't carry one cactus down a hill?" Dave turned and pointed toward the top of the ridge. There, backlit by the dawn's early light, I got my first look at our objective, a massive saguaro anchored into the hilltop 100 yards away. If Central Casting were looking for America's next top cactus, this was it. 14 feet tall, as wide around as a manhole cover, with 2 beefy arms curling up and out of its massive torso. It appeared to be giving me the finger. "Holy crap," I muttered. "That's a big cactus." "Big ain't the problem," said Dave. "That thing weighs maybe 2 tons. You really want to walk it down here?" Sensing the rhetorical nature of his query, I responded with another question. "How old is that thing?" "Well," said Dave, "based on its height, I'd say 200 years, maybe more. It was probably standing right there when Thomas Jefferson was president." Clearly, this was a cactus with a history, but as we trudged up the hill to give it a closer look, I realized that its resume did not include a willingness to relocate. The base was completely encased in a slab of solid granite, and the needles that protruded from its leathery hide looked like punji sticks, patiently waiting for an opportunity to slide into something soft and fleshy. Wouldn't it be easier, I said, to, take a different one? Maybe one of those back there by the truck? This got Dave to laughing. We don't do anything easy, Mike. And besides, this is the one the customer wants. Dave laid it out in simple terms. First, we would build the rope. Then, we'd back the truck up the ridge and raise the iron cross from its rusty bed. Then, while the cactus was still on the ground, we'd secure it to the cross. There would be much hammering and swearing, and according to Dave, a strong likelihood of bloodshed. Then, the real work would commence. The trick was to remove the cactus with the roots completely intact, which meant digging well below the rocky surface. Once the roots came free, a hydraulic motor would lift the cross skyward, pulling the cactus up and out of its hole into the bed of the pickup and off to greener pastures. If we work fast, said Dave, we can beat the heat, and we'll be out of here in 3 hours. This time, I was the one who laughed. On dirty jobs, the only thing that takes 3 hours is 6 hours. And sure enough, 3 hours later, the real work, as Dave called it, was just getting started. Armed with a sledgehammer from the Civil War, I assumed a position on the downward slope and began to work on the granite surrounding the base. My first swing bounced off the rock like vulcanized rubber and sent the hammer flying straight back toward my head. You gotta swing it harder, said Dave, like a man. He stood across from me with an even larger mallet, which he swung with the ease and speed of a wiffle bat. Stones splintered, dirt flew, sweat poured. I swung harder and managed to chip away at the ancient rock without knocking myself unconscious. At first, the saguaro seemed indifferent, humoring our assault the way a horse might tolerate a few flies. Then, as we began to expose the root system, the cactus began to fight back. No matter how careful I was, more needles of various sizes found their way into my shoulders and arms. Under Dave's mighty mallet, the rock slowly gave way, and the hole grew deeper, but the cactus itself remained solidly anchored into the hill. The day dragged on, blisters popped and oozed, sunscreen and sweat streamed into my eyes, and little silver dots began to dance in my periphery. Pausing for a refreshing bottle of boiling water, I marveled at the intractability of this primitive plant and quietly cursed my decision to accept Dave Morales' invitation. By 3 p.m., things had gotten personal. I'd come to see the cactus as Excalibur and myself as a knight on a hopeless quest. When I broke my second pick handle of the day, Dave gave me the iron tamping bar with a chisel forged onto one end. It was far too hot to hold, but just the right temperature for cauterizing blisters, which is precisely what happened the second I grabbed it. By 4 p.m., Dave had employed his entire arsenal of tools to no avail. One of our cameras melted from the inside out, and I began giggling for no apparent reason. A delirium was descending upon the whole scene as the desert and everything in it conspired to drive us back to civilization. Meanwhile, the cactus stood firm. I could spend an hour walking you through every detail and every setback of the great Dirty Jobs cactus crucible. George Plimpton would have waxed poetic about the steady rhythm of sledgehammers swinging in a Sisyphean counterpoint. Studs Terkel might have captured the closeness that manual labor can foster between fathers and sons. And Charles Kuralt, he would have turned a simple confrontation between a big man and a big plant into something even bigger. In their hands, Dave Morales would have become Hemingway's Old Man, plucked from the sea and dropped into Eliot's wasteland, an homage to all those scratching out a living in the rough terrain of their own metaphorical desert. We accomplished our task just before the sun set, and Dave and I said our goodbyes. On the way home, Dave got a phone call. Great news. A casino in Las Vegas needed 50 cacti as soon as possible. It was a month of steady work for Dave, and it would begin at 4:30 a.m. the next morning. Dave was jubilant. I was dehydrated. Back at the hotel, I liberated another Dos Equis from the minibar and jotted down a few lines in my journal before passing out. I fell asleep before I finished the beer, but my last conscious thought, as I pulled another needle from my sunburned shoulder, is still scribbled at the bottom of the page. Hard work really is the thing that matters most. And in spite of all the pricks, there's still reason for hope, even in a place called Congress. Anyway, that was the day I decided to start MicroWorks. And that was the job that inspired the Sweat Pledge. And of all the people I've met who have chosen to work their butts off, nobody made the point like Dave Morales. I believe that all people are created equal. I also believe that all people make choices. Some choose to be lazy, some choose to sleep in. I choose to work my butt off. I'm not.
So I apologize for taking the phone call in the middle of our conversation. What were you saying?
I'm
Anything
sure it was
important?
pressing. It was like a voiceover gig or something?
Yes. Well,
Right.
I mean, it wasn't really a gig. It was an
An
opportunity.
audition. So
And,
an audition. You actually walked away from a shoot to take a call about a potential voiceover.
I knew exactly who it was. It was the voice caster.
Yeah.
They were calling about a voiceover audition.
That they want you to do.
That they want me to do. That would
They
be
were,
funny.
they were looking for a Mike Rowe type. And
Yeah.
let me just tell you,
Never
if I had a nickel for every piece of voiceover copy that I've read that says a la Mike Rowe, and I've never booked any of them. Never.
you know.
Not one.
It's like Porsche. There is no substitute.